Hi, Donna, and thank you very much for the introduction. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's presentation on Atlanta's Affordable Housing Preservation Challenge. I'm pleased to be joined on the call by Sarah Haas, who is out of Enterprise's Southeast Market Office, Kate Little from Georgia ACT, and Brittany Days from the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. On the slide indicates Philip Gilman's name, who's also involved in this, but he was unable to attend today. So I'd like to welcome Brittany as well. We will all be available to answer your questions after I give my presentation. But before we get started, I do want to give a quick overview of what I'm going to be covering today. We are going to talk in general about how we are planning on utilizing the competition structure to spur innovation generally and in the context of preservation in the Atlanta region. We'll go through the Atlanta Challenge's goals, structure, and timeline, and then we'll reserve plenty of time for question and answer and discussion. For those of you that were able to attend the Atlanta Challenge launch event on November 3rd. This specific portion of the call, the presentation, may be mostly a repeat of what you heard at the time, but I will be keeping this as brief as possible to leave as much time for Q&A. So if you hang tight, we will get to additional information as we get into the discussion portion. So Enterprise and its partners have been involved for a number of years in utilizing competitions to spur innovative solutions. The structure of the time-limited proposal collection period with an implementation prize we found to be an effective mechanism for increasing local and national capacity to address critical affordable housing challenges and provide an impetus to really think about, test out, and try innovative solutions that fall outside of the standard operating procedure of the field. Some examples that we have undertaken have included a competition in coordination with Deutsche Bank on lowering the cost of affordable housing construction, specifically focused on the category of design innovations. We also partnered with a number of local and state partners in Minnesota for the Minnesota Challenge to lower the cost of affordable housing. And that has resulted in some innovative changes, including not only the winning proposal, which was a technical assistance and capacity building proposal aimed at improving the regulatory and zoning structure in which affordable housing developers operate, but also it was successful in generating a number of additional ideas that some local stakeholders, including Minnesota Housing, have worked to implement outside of the competition structure. So we found this structure to be helpful not just in spurring and moving forward one winning idea, but it's helpful in improving the number of or increasing the number of ideas that are being brought to the light of day and implemented through other venues. So we hope to replicate that success here in Atlanta. We are pleased to thank our sponsor for this initiative, the J.P. Morgan Chase Foundation, as well as our co-organizers of the competition, Georgia Department of Community Affairs and Georgia ACT, as I mentioned earlier. We chose this issue by meeting with these partners and a range of other stakeholders from across the Atlanta region who have really identified preservation as a critical challenge in the market. And so that is why we decided through that combination of local experience and research on the needs in the Atlanta market, that's why we decided to focus on this subject. So diving specifically into more detail on the Atlanta Challenge, sort of the mission statement, if you will, is that the Atlanta Challenge is an idea competition to generate innovative, implementable proposals that will preserve affordable housing in the Atlanta region and throughout Georgia's urban centers. We have published a request for ideas that provides details on the competition structure, goals, and timeline, and that it that, along with other information, is available on the competition's website, www.atlpreservation.org. I'll warn people that the site, everything is accessible on the site right now. We are still working through a few bugs in terms of functionality and presentation. So the site is evolving, but you should be able, if you go to that site right now, you should be able to access all of the information that I'll be discussing in the coming slides. So there are a lot of different ways that we could have taken this competition, and how broad or narrow we keep it, but we wanted to make sure that we were collecting the widest range of potential innovative ideas and proposals possible. So we are focusing on preservation more broadly, and that can mean a number of things. And this slide details a list of specific categories of idea that we would be seeking out, though if you have something that falls into and that falls outside of any of these categories, we would still be happy to receive those proposals. There can be proposals that identify a pipeline of properties at risk of loss. There can be capacity building related proposals to expand the pool of developers that are capable of undertaking preservation efforts. We can receive proposals around cross-jurisdictional or cross-sector engagement and building up partnerships. We could receive proposals around capital products. You can preserve a building or a property if you don't have the financing. So if there are proposals that help expand the financial capacity of the market, that would be helpful as well. There's the policy framework. Can we develop local and or regional policies that support preservation? And engaging tenants. We're talking about the preservation of units, but the goal is ultimately to make sure that there's safe, decent, affordable housing for low and moderate income households. So, and we want to make sure that the tenant perspective is represented as part of this competition. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but proposals may address that issue as well. So wide-ranging, open competition in terms of the ideas that will hopefully generate some proposals that will have a significant impact. The way the competition is structured is that there will be two phases. And the first phase is what we sort of, in terms of shorthand, call a brainstorming phase. The goal is to develop a broad idea base. This is a low barrier to entry phase. You don't need to have a detailed proposal, business plan, or anything, every single detail settled at this stage of the competition. We want a simple 6-page submission, 3 of which is an informational Q&A, our questionnaire that is a lot of check the box type information about your proposal, and then a short 2-page narrative to really flesh out that information and be a little bit more descriptive. A selection panel will review those proposals and select up to 3 finalists, and each finalist will receive up to $10,000 for phase 2 proposal development. That will be governed by a request for proposals. So phase 2, if you're selected to enter into that phase, is where some of the heavier lifting around due diligence and planning for the proposal would have to be done. At this phase, though, in phase 1, we want to keep this as broad as possible so that we can get as many good ideas raised up and into the open. Phase 2, again, as I mentioned, will shift to a focus on feasibility and impact. The finalists conduct their due diligence and feasibility analyses, partially funded through the $10,000 award, and one proposal will be selected to receive up to $70,000 to implement that winning proposal. The selection panel will evaluate proposals in phase 1 based on 5 different categories of rating, and five different rating factor categories. Phase 2 will follow a similar structure, but there will be some nuanced changes to weighting and specific evaluation criteria based on the need for phase 2 proposals to be a little bit more fleshed out and have more due diligence having been conducted. But putting that phase 2 aside for a second, let's dive a little bit deeper into the phase 1 evaluation criteria. And the first one is feasibility. Now, I know I just said that a lot of the due diligence wouldn't have been conducted yet. What we're really talking about in terms of feasibility is conceptually, does this proposal make sense? Could it work based on the expert opinions of the selection panel? Is the policy and are the policy and regulatory tools in place that are necessary to complement your proposal? And if not, what is the likelihood of those being achieved? Do the broad-based financial numbers that you mentioned in your submission, while not a specific business plan, does it sound reasonable that the additional money to implement could be raised, or that the prize money would be sufficient to accomplish what you are proposing? The second category is scale of impact, and that is not just in terms of the number of units that your proposal could directly or indirectly facilitate in terms of preservation efforts, but also the breadth of impact. Does the proposal apply across different property types in terms of building types or subsidy status? Does the proposal adequately function in different neighborhood typologies? Will it work in high opportunity communities, gentrifying communities, and or communities in need of reinvestment? There are a number of different factors that are outlined in the RFI that outline the different ways that we are looking at the scale of impact and what the magnitude of potential impact from your proposal could be. Continued impact, another way of looking at that is the ongoing sustainability of the proposal. So after the initial $70,000 prize is utilized and expended, will the innovative concept still be viable? Is there a long-term sustainable business plan that will enable that to move forward after the initial period of performance? Is this proposal replicable? And can it have an impact beyond, or scalable? Can it be made even more impactful through additional actions? So those are some of the things that we're looking at. Neighborhood context, we're looking at what I mentioned earlier in terms of neighborhood typologies. Does this apply in multiple neighborhood types? How does your proposal address the differences between preservation efforts in high-cost communities or gentrifying communities or areas that have struggled and may be in need of reinvestment? And then the final category is tenant engagement and impact. And again, I mentioned earlier that this is a really important piece to us. It is not weighted particularly heavily in phase 1, but during phase 2, we will be weighting it more heavily because as you flesh out your proposals, there will be more opportunities to think through the impacts that your proposal will have on tenants. In terms of timeline, we launched the event and published the request for ideas on November 3rd. Following our webinar today, we will be accepting questions and answers, or questions rather, on the atlpreservation.org website, and we'll be posting answers to the site so that if you have questions as you're trying to develop a proposal, as you're thinking about potential concepts, or if you have any questions in general, we will be monitoring that site and posting the answers up there so that they are broadly accessible to all potential parties. The deadline we will answer those questions as they come in, but the deadline for submission is December 19th. On January 6th, phase 1 electronic submissions will be due. Phase 2 will launch in late January. We will notify the finalists as soon as the selection panel has made its decision. And on January 26th, so this is a tentative date, but if you can pencil it in on your calendars, we will be announcing the finalists. We are expecting the finalists, someone from that team, not the entire team, but someone from that team will be presenting their concept. The three finalists will present their concepts at an event on January 26th in Atlanta to receive feedback from the public. This is an opportunity to pitch your proposals, to get feedback, to answer questions, to get feedback that will help you refine your proposal as you work through the due diligence phase. And in May, final proposals will be due, and the winner will be announced to receive and they will receive the additional $70,000 in funding. So a couple final details before we move on to questions and answers. Eligibility: any entity capable of planning or partner proposed activity is eligible. Not all partners need to be fully, signed on the dotted line for Phase 1 submissions, but we are going to be considering feasibility in our ratings. So if the application does not demonstrate a viable path for engaging all critical and necessary partners for success of the innovative idea, then that will be rated accordingly. There are no limit on the number of partners that you can engage, but we will need one point of contact to serve as the lead for interfacing with the Atlanta Challenge organizers. Dissemination: all submitted concepts will be posted to the website upon announcement of the finalists. This is to sort of leverage this platform to raise up good ideas and build partnerships that can potentially move successful and good proposals that maybe weren't a great fit for this competition, but otherwise should be implemented, help move them and give them a platform to move forward otherwise. And then I'll also note that we are working on a thread on the website that would allow partners to talk to each other, engage each other on the website. We're having some technical difficulties with that, but we will hopefully have that up and running soon. And one of the things that we learned from our Minnesota experience with the Minnesota Challenge is that a lot of organizations have really good ideas, but they don't have the capacity to either flesh out the proposal in the first place or ultimately implement it. But they wanted to raise it up and get it out there in the public. So if you can't submit a full proposal, you can still, we'll be posting a thread shortly for you to pitch your idea, get the idea out there, even if it's not in the level of detail that we require in a Phase 1 submission. We can put it on the website, and maybe this is an opportunity for someone else to pick up that idea and run with it or partner with you in developing a proposal. So we want to make sure that atlpreservation.org serves as a forum for additional ideas and conversation. So I want to thank everyone for their time and for joining us today again. I want to open it up now for discussion if anyone from the audience has any questions.
Terrific. Thank you, Mike. Just a reminder that most people are using streaming audio today, so go ahead and type your question into the Q&A box, which is located on the lower right-hand side of your screen. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, just a reminder that this session has been recorded, so a copy of the recording and a copy of the slides will be made available to all attendees. We try to get that out within 48 hours. This is where I play the theme music to Jeopardy while we wait for some questions to come in.
So the one question we have received is, what are the geographic boundaries? City of Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, all of Georgia. So the geographic boundaries are the 5 inner core counties of the Atlanta metropolitan region: Clayton, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, and Gwinnett counties. That doesn't mean that a proposal can't touch on areas outside of that, in addition to one of those regions, or a portion, or all or a portion of the 5-county region. But it will have, your proposal will have to have some nexus with that 5-county region. Again, it could apply to the whole 5-county region. It could apply to certain neighborhoods across the 5-county, certain types of neighborhoods across the 5-county region. It could apply to a specific county or site or neighborhood. And it could be more broadly, as long as it's accessible to the 5-county region. So we're keeping it fairly broad. It just needs to have that one nexus point.
Terrific. Thank you. First question that has come in is new construction in the mix?
So I don't want to say no. The new construction would have to have a preservation nexus. So if we're talking about potentially, I'm trying to think of an example where this could work. But if for example you have a preservation opportunity where it needs to be in the process of preserving those units in order to make it financially viable given existing subsidy resources, you need to improve economies of scale and add additional units. So as part of a preservation effort, there is a new construction component. For example, if there's additional development potential on a given site, that could be considered, but this is for the primary focus is for preservation of existing properties. Another question we received: are there any examples of submissions for comparable contests? Yes, we can. We can provide some. I can provide some examples. I don't want to make. I just don't want people to think of this as narrowing it down. Just think of it as illustrative and non-exhaustive. So, in the Minnesota Challenge, the finalists again, keep in mind that the area of focus was different. It was on more innovative ways that we can more cost-effectively use scarce affordable housing subsidy. So the winning proposal in Minnesota was from a group of practitioners and researchers that were going to study and look into the local zoning and building and regulatory framework across the Twin Cities region in Minnesota, and identify potential areas where they could reduce development costs and provide technical assistance to interested municipal governments for streamlining their regulations. So that was the winning proposal. The other proposals included a group that was looking to develop a financial product, an insurance-like product that would allow high-capacity developers to lower the amount of upfront capitalized operating reserves they need to maintain. So they were saying we have 10 properties each with a non-trivial amount of money tied up in operating reserves that we rarely, if ever, have to tap into. What if we had an insurance product that would preserve the interest, the risk mitigation interests for ourselves and for our investors, while also freeing up scarce capital for development rather than just sitting in these reserves. And the third place, some other finalist that received the first round award was a group that included some construction and architecture experts that wanted to create a sort of off-the-shelf design template for affordable housing to reduce the amount of architectural and design costs. For the Deutsche Bank competition, enterprise Deutsche Bank competition that was specifically around design, one proposal was related to, the winning proposal was related to modular construction techniques in Maine at a given development. And the second place proposal was around the development of a model for scaling accessory dwelling unit production. So addressing some of the capacity barriers for using accessory dwelling units as a means of enhancing affordability. There was a proposal around a design and financial model to bring that to scale.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Waiting to see if we get some more questions in.
While we're waiting, we would like to mention that we are available to provide assistance, limited assistance, to people that are interested in submitting for Phase 1 and Phase 2. We will make a determination of, we'll definitely be able to answer any questions related to eligibility, to the clarifications about the RFI. We will be making judgments over whether these are generally applicable questions. If it's a generally applicable question, we will be making these answers available to all interested parties via atlpreservation.org. We may have some. We do reserve the right to say that some of the questions are outside of our capabilities of answering in terms of not offering an unfair advantage to the certain interested parties, but we'll do our best to make this as easy of a process as possible for anyone that has questions, and share our answers as broadly as possible.
Terrific. Thank you, Mike. Speaking of questions, yeah, I'm not seeing any more in the Q&A box. Do you have any wrap-up words for us?
Well, before I go do, I just wanted to open the floor in case any of our co-organizers have any thoughts. They may not, but just want to give them an opportunity before we sign off, and maybe if someone comes up with an idea at a question at the last minute, give them another couple seconds.
Nope, good.
Great. Well, thanks to everyone for joining today. Again, if you review the RFI, we hope that everyone will review the request for ideas that is available at www.atlpreservation.org. And we look forward to talking to you more about this competition, and looking forward to hearing your great ideas. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you to all of our attendees today. And this now concludes this live online event. Goodbye.